Now, when a government loses office, especially in an election as messy as this one was, Labor losing votes, yet still winning, independents getting up and minor parties running rampant, of course, there's always a myriad of reasons. You can't pin it down to one factor. But it does seem clear that the coalition has developed a women problem. It's come across as pretty blokey in recent years. It hasn't had a lot of women in senior positions, and according to the surveys, it's lost a lot of votes from women. And there's been some pretty putrid attacks against the coalition from the left on women's issues as well. But there's a great paradox here, because politicians, activists and commentators on the left, they attack Liberals over the women issue. But when Conservative women dare to raise their heads, they typically cop terrible abuse without the left coming to their defence. I mean, just think of the former Liberal member for Boothby, Nicole Flint. She put up with too much for too long and so left Parliament at this election.
Men on the left, some of whom are public figures of influence, have done the following. They've stalked me, suggested I should be strangled, criticised the clothes I wear and the way I look, called me a whiny little repeatedly called me weak, a slut, a and apologised for the language, and much, much worse over email, online, on YouTube, on Facebook and on Twitter. They've commented that I should be raped, grudge that I am doing sexual favours for all my male colleagues, that I should be killed, that I should kill myself, and many, many more things that I will not repeat here. So, to the left, to get up Labor and the unions, the left-leaning media, you know exactly who you are. You need to finally show some leadership and put a stop to this sort of behaviour. If they don't, well, they're not really leaders then, are they?
Shocking stuff, isn't it? And then there was Liberal Senator Holly Hughes, subjected to vile abuse from a Green senator in the chamber.
Everyone knows my Achilles heel now, but you attack my beautiful boy. It hurts and it cuts. And apart from the offensiveness of it and the inappropriate behaviour within the Senate chamber, for anyone to suggest that somehow children with special needs, that children with a disability, that if you kept your legs shut, they wouldn't have been born. Yeah. It is so offensive. And it's not only offensive to me, it is offensive to every autism family in Australia.
And even in this campaign, we saw a police complaint laid by a Liberal candidate against a Labor volunteer.
This Labor volunteer then proceeded to follow me around for 18 minutes, making degrading comments, slurs and saying a lot of obscene profanities, which I won't repeat for your viewers, but it was designed to intimidate and threaten me, and obviously would be designed to sort of see me bow out and not knuckle down or be intimidated, but all it does is make me double down harder, Chris.
Yeah, so the Liberals definitely need more women in Parliament, but by God, Conservative women need to have uncommon courage, don't they? Let me bring in Liberal Senator for Tasmania, Claire Chandler. Claire, thanks for joining us again. It is a fact, isn't it, that Conservative women seem to get much more aggressive abuse. It's of course appalling if this sexist abuse occurs against any woman, but Conservative women seem to cop it worse.
I think that's quite right, Chris. I mean, it is incredibly problematic when any women who put themselves forward for public office are receiving abuse and threats like what you've just highlighted. But it is particularly disappointing when it's happening to Conservative women at a time when we know, the Liberal Party knows, that we need to see more women elected to public office and more women getting involved in our party. And you played a clip of my good friend Nicole Flint, the former member for Boothby there. We are going to miss Nicole's voice so much in the next Parliament. And I just think it's an absolute tragedy that a woman of such integrity and courage has felt that the best way forward for her is to not be involved in political life in that way because of the abuse and the threats that she has received. It's an absolute indictment on the left wing of politics in this country that the abuse of right-wing women has gone somewhat unanswered by them.
So what is the answer to this? Because as you say, you need to have more women in right of centre politics. But and everybody's got to be robust in politics. No one can be too fragile. But what woman in her right mind would put her head up for that sort of vile sexist abuse?
Look, it's a question that I've certainly grappled with personally over the 3 years. It's some of the abuse and the threats that I've received in the course of my advocacy on particular women's issues. And look, it is hard. Like you say, many women would be asking themselves why they should put themselves up for public office and that level of scrutiny and attention, some of which, of course, occurs through the normal discourse, but some of which is absolutely uncalled for. And I think the key is that we need more women seeking elected office so that we can support each other when we go through something like this. And Nicole certainly has been incredibly supportive of me when I've been put through the ringer by the left-wing media. Holly Hughes, we saw a clip of her earlier. She's been fantastic. And of course, Senator Amanda Stoker as well. There are great women in our team, and we all need to be able to support each other to make it a little bit easier when the left come for us, which they are inevitably going to.
Yeah, I think there's got to be a lot more bipartisan and, if I could put it this way, cross-gender support too. That is, when anybody is subjected to this sort of attack, then everybody should condemn it in politics, whether they're from the other side of the aisle or whether they're male or female. And I don't think we've seen enough of that. I mean, for instance, I remember condemning some behaviour towards Sarah Hanson-Young. Now, I wouldn't agree with her on much, but I saw the way that there was some sexual abuse directed at her, and it's just appalling. So everybody's got to call that out. No, nobody should be subjected to that.
Absolutely agree, Chris, and it's not just an issue for the women to come together and support each other. I think that's a really important part of it because women are subjected to it more than men. I do genuinely think that.
Yes.
But absolutely, our male colleagues need to be ready and willing to call it out when it happens as well.
And just very briefly, would you consider quotas to boost the numbers of women in the Liberal Party?
Oh, look, I've been on your show before, Chris, and I think we've had this conversation. Yep. I'm not supportive of quotas. I'm supportive of ensuring that we have a very wide pool of talent within the Liberal Party to draw our candidates from. And I think the party has come this far and elected some fantastic women to Parliament without quotas, particularly in my home state of Tasmania. Of course, there is more work that needs to be done, but I do think that quotas becomes the answer that when you don't really have any other idea of what to do. And there are good ideas out there at how we can engage better with women.
Thanks for joining us, Claire. Appreciate it.